Summer is here, man. It is. I'm convinced.
I'm trying to rush it, man. It was, I'm not ready for summer. I'm also done with the rain. So if some bringing on summer means less rain, I'm all in for it. It's May 14th, the year 2024. Looking forward, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is episode 768.
Yeah, it is. Well, we can have a little rain, but I know it's going to be 80 this weekend. We got some people coming up here to the lake.
80.
And it's going to be awesome. I was on the sup board yesterday. I can handle it now.
You can handle it?
I mean, I'm a little wobbly.
Yeah. Ari, how's the core strength coming on that bad boy?
How's the what?
How's the core strength coming on that bad boy?
Oh, I mean, I can't tell. It's really my ankles more that I notice.
Yes, the foot strength.
Foot strength is what's like, woo. I think that's just because I'm tight. I'm a little stressed because the water's a little cold still.
You don't want to go tumbling in, huh?
Get a little wobbly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's you got to pick your spots. I got to do it when it's smooth out. I can't if it's choppy at all. I'm a mess.
Yeah, I think that was the first time I ever did that. When we lived in Chattanooga, I got done the next day. I think outside of my lats and like kind of outside of my arms, my feet were shredded. I mean, they were like so sore the next day, and I was like, hey, it's just a little more. Very enlightening to find these little kind of weaknesses we have in our body. It's all when you do something like totally different than what we do as triathletes. You can do like, more east-west stuff or something that just uses body parts that you're not accustomed to focusing on. I'm like, man, that is super, super sore. And again, just a friendly reminder how relative overall fitness is into what you do specifically as a sport. But yeah, I don't know that I'm ready for summer to be here, but you know what? It's coming. And we're going to get off and on warm and cool temps for basically the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then you know what? We're all going to be craving winter because summer will be so hot.
Well,
that's just that time of year.
Yeah, I mean, I was up here most of the summer. I'm ready now for like 6 months of San Diego weather. That's what we get from now until like the end of September.
You got the long sleeve optional hoodie shorts weather is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, it's sweet. I was thinking back to that paddle board. Like, was that the sup board in Chattanooga? I think I used that one that you had, and that was a mess out on that river, man.
Okay, that's right. You took it on the Tennessee River.
Yeah, I was doggy pat. I was doing the whole. I thought that was the current and everything. That is no joke on that sup board. But anyway, yeah. So the weather's gonna be good.
It's going to be awesome. You got Chattanooga 70.3 this weekend, Morro Bay. Best of luck to everyone doing Chattanooga 70.3 this weekend. It's one of my all-time favorite races and favorite venues. And I hope everyone has an awesome race. Great city, and they host a really, really great event there. I think I've heard like 3,000 plus there again. So yeah, great time and a race that we love dearly. And so again, good luck to everybody down there. It's your first time tuning in today. Welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the Triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Times of Abs. We appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open and honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. Mike and I also like to talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. He and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes looking for their first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back toward championships, and everyone in between, all over the globe. We'll use the feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also like to utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question and let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, solid resource in a sport that is oftentimes way overcomplicated and way too confusing, and is a solid, safe, actionable space to get great information from seasoned veterans to help you avoid some of the pitfalls you made along the way. And so be a part of that community. Don't be a lurker. Be a participant. And we like to go in there about once a month, take the pulse of the community, do a little bit of a Q&A, and do that as a podcast like we did last week, which was a very popular topic, was swimming. Covered a lot of those, got a lot of great feedback from that. But that is it. We don't do sponsors, we don't do ads, but we do have an agenda. That's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah. The one thing I was worried about when I moved up here was my cycling opportunities.
Yeah.
And because it's just sort of a kind of a touristy area, you know, with those bad roads and no shoulders and all that kind of shit. And it's taken me a little time, but I found I don't know, it's actually about a 15-mile loop with real protected roads and no cars kind of thing. It's like through complexes, but there's really nice, good stretches, and it's really fun riding. You kind of do those cul-de-sac loops, and it's just for bike handling and all that stuff. But the point of this whole matter is, I think, you know, we spend a lot of time on the trainer, and obviously trainer is kind of, you know, kind of sucks, to be honest. I mean, you can get into a groove with it and everything like that, and it's good for you. I'm not saying it's bad training, but you know how it is. So when we lived in Nashville, I had that situation where I could just ride out of my driveway and go to the greenway and then hit the lab or ride, you know, 15 miles or on a path and without. But my point is the mindset change has been unbelievable because I had the running and I have the swimming, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's on because this bike, I really enjoy it and I'm looking forward to it again. So I think, boy, I guess what I'm talking about is it's nice to have spots. And it's nice to have paths and you know, just routes and shit like that you like. That really makes a difference.
It makes all the difference in the world.
It does.
Especially, right, like coming out of, and I find this all the time with athletes. I'm sure you hear it a lot too, like in the last like 2 to 3 weeks. Once an athlete, you know, let's say an athlete, you know, starts getting stuck inside, you know, late October through March. You kind of know, right? Like we all kind of succumb to the fact that if we want to ride, unless you're going to take a fat tire bike out or you live in a climate where it's always, you know, like San Diego, where you can ride outside pretty much every day of the year, you just kind of succumb to the fact that, you know what, this is what it is. There's no sense of complaining. Just get it done. This is my only option. Option A is the only option I got. But as soon as an athlete gets option B or option C thrown into the mix, like that first nice day outside, like, oh, I got outside today, best ride ever, right? Or I forgot how much harder it was to ride outside, right? I forgot how harder it was to you know, on my core and you know, I find myself clenching my upper body, all these things. Then what I usually find is for a lot of athletes, the trainer becomes more of a responsibility instead of something that they're like, yeah, this is what I got, right? Because like you said, having options is great. I think everybody needs options. Like, you know, ideal scenario is you've got access to 25-yard pool, right? Summertime outdoor 50-meter, right? Pool, long course. You've got access to open water. Cycling, you've got obviously the opportunity to ride inside. You've got an opportunity to maybe hit just like a greenway path and just kind of cruise on your gravel bike or fat tire bike. You got mountain bike, maybe road bike, whatever you got. All the kinds of options to ride either alone, with other people, and on different terrain. Same thing with running, right? Treadmill in the house, worst case scenario, but also like pretty good for specific intervals. And then you've got, you know, you can run from your front steps, right? You got asphalt, concrete, but then also access to trail, maybe even some pea gravel. Like that is the perfect case scenario for all athletes. Now, that's also pretty hard to find. It also takes a lot of effort, especially getting something like that. Like you can't have it like from your front steps really, but that it opens up a wide variety because just like athletes, I think kind of ebb and flow with what they find is like their favorite groove. You know, athletes say, I'm just loving running right now. And can we run more? Which is the great thing about triathlon is always it's hard to get burnt out totally as long as you're doing things right because there's always one sport you can kind of gravitate to and even like push, you know, 60 to 70% of the training into. Oh, I'm just loving something. I'm just loving riding. The same thing goes for having all these opportunities, right? To ride outside, inside, swim along course, swim open water, swim inside, you know, some people even swim at home, like they have a Vasa trainer. Like there's just so many options. And then once you, again, the more options, sometimes it also leads to being a little more picky, if you will. Like I think you find this too, is like sometimes in the winter, even when it's warm enough to run outside, people get into this trap of only wanting to run on the treadmill. and it becomes like their comfort space, and they come like almost resistant to wanting to run outside. They're just like, I'm just in a treadmill group right now. That's all I want to do. Now, getting it done is the most important thing, but also you got to go outside, right? Same thing with cycling. You see it the most. I'm all about the trainer. I'm kind of resistant to going outside. And again, like all these things, they can be positives, they can be negatives too. Positives, and you have opportunity to mix things up. It works different muscle groups. You're actually, getting outside, getting some good vitamin D. Things outside are more fun, going on actual group rides, face to face, not virtual on a screen. And so again, the more opportunities, the better. But I think it also does, like you said, it leaves opportunities for you to start maybe despising one of the opportunities that you've done song, especially like being stuck, riding indoors for months. And now like you've got, riding from, outside, you're like, the last thing you probably want to do is hop on the trainer. Today you're probably going to switch things up and do a run or a swim, and then push things to where you can actually go outside and ride, because that's what you're now feeling, and that's what excites you.
Yeah, it's so true. And as you're saying that, I was kind of thinking, when we struggle to get outside, or, like that trainer, not addiction, but you get kind of used to the trainer or the treadmill or whatever it is. And same with the outside in the water too. I mean, you get in the pool, and it's tough to make that switch sometimes. And, I talked a lot about spending my winter in the cold plunge and getting in the lake and all that. And I, the results or the benefits of that are open for discussion, as far as if it's great for your body or bad for your body. I mean, I've seen both ways. I've seen people talking about it's too hard on the body and it's not good. And I've also, so that's what, I mean, actually it was weird, because I naturally came to the conclusion that, I was doing some pretty heavy, 33, 34 degree water, 4-minute deals. And, I decided at some point that I was going to get more into like zone 2 plunging, where I'd get in and get out quicker, because I wondered if it was stressing me out a little bit too much. But the point of it is I was getting out all winter. So it's almost like I feel like it's making it easier to get out now, or it seems a lot easier, and it seems more enjoyable, because I forced myself out. And I, when we lived in Nashville, sometimes it would be, the winters would get a little cold down there, and I usually ran year round outside down there, even if it was, snowy or whatever the case may be. But so that was always easy to transition out of winter into running outside. But the bike was never, it can be a little, because you're like you're saying, that first time you get out is a little tough sometimes, and it's hard. It's a tough ride. I took my buddy, he's training for Wisconsin 70.3, he's 60 years old, his first one. And he came up this weekend, and I took him out riding, and it was his first time outside. I don't even know if he's been inside, to be honest, but I kind of took him around, and, we didn't go too far, but we went 15 miles, I think. And, it shelled him. So, and I just think it was sort of, just making that move, and then having a place that you want to go. It's just, I guess what I'm getting at is it's like this sport is a lot more fun when you've got places to go and you've got them set up. And we talk about it many times about how you and I are both guys that like the same route. And for me, it's I love it because I can kind of gauge myself, right? I can see things if, I'm doing that route a little bit quicker on the same kind of effort, and you can kind of see progress. And I always like that. I used to like to run on the Greenway with those mile markers. It's the same thing. I just go out and do the same shit, but for me, taking, you say what, varieties for the week or something like that.
Yeah.
But I kind of agree, because for me, it frees up. I think you got to go experience different routes and things, like, don't get me wrong, but when I'm training and I know where I'm going, it kind of takes the other elements out of it, like the elements of surprise, and I can kind of just really relax and zone into what's going on. So to me, that's really a big deal. It's weird because, like, even when you go to different pools, it feels really different, doesn't it? I think it does.
Oh, it feels totally different. It's like, is this even water? Like, what are we swimming in right now?
You're looking at the pipes on the ceiling. It's like a weird, like, boiler room kind of vibe, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, when you say things like varieties for the week, to me, that's more about one, right, finding a groove that works for you. And that also might change, right? Like you might love, going to a certain pool that might be, closer, farther away. You might be into, training inside more than outside. You might be more into outside. Because I have a lot of athletes like I refuse to ride my bike inside. They just refuse to. Plenty of athletes, accomplished athletes, like I refuse to. I will go out in any weather. I want to ride my mountain bike. I want to ride my gravel bike, fat tire bike, whatever it is. I'm riding outside. I'm not a new trainer. And also, like, if it's raining, I'm not running on the treadmill. Don't care. I'll rebel. So when you hear things like that, to me, that's not about, not being too rigid. It's about knowing what works for you. And I think that is like when you look at the opportunities that we all have now to train and the attractive nature of how easy it is, yes, to train inside, right? The number one thing is just getting it done, right? Getting the work done is the number one thing, right? But I think happens, and this happens a lot of times this time of year, is people have one or two bad experiences outside, right? Maybe they have a trouble, unclipping for a minute and they topple over. Or they had, one angry, redneck in a Ford 250 that, brushes them a little bit close, and that's like, I'm not riding outside ever again. Or, something like that happens. So we get in these grooves, and then we're also very easily deterred to find our way back to the groove that we find is the most comfortable. And then again, that's a good thing because it allows you to get the work done. But the further we get from the specificity of the race, the harder it is for you to translate your fitness to race day. And we see this all the time with athletes, is the inability to take objective measuring, data points from a controlled setting, right? Swimming in a pool, only biking inside, only running the same route that's always flat, or running the mill, to what is possible on race day. When you're taking, internal and external controlled environment, and you're putting that fitness out into an external environment that you cannot control, that also is now requiring of you a different internal effort, right? Most people would, and so I'll use cycling for an example. We talk about all of them, but cycling to me is it's an energy shift. So inside, I don't have to focus any mental energy on handling your bike, right? Grabbing fuel and hydration at the right time because it's on a stool or it's on a table, right? I don't have to watch out for cars. I'm not stressed about anything. I don't have to worry about time. I just pedal hard. But also the watts are harder to come by inside. And then when you move outside, for I would say 90% of people, the watts become easier. It's easier for most people to push watts outside on your bike on a road than it is inside because of physics. Now, having said that, you also now are using energy, right? Your arms usually more tired. You're mentally a bit more fatigued. Your core, lower back might not be. Your neck might not be used to, looking down the road as much. It's a total shift. But then you've got, a totally different. Again, it's a total shift, which is why I think in the beginning of the year, when you have athletes that we find ourselves only training inside, and you go outside and you want to put the real world, you don't get it's not an apples to apples comparison, right? Same thing with swimming, right? You swim the pool year round, you don't get it out in open water, and you're like, I just can't fathom why my pace is so much lower, right? You don't know how much you're off course. You don't have the stop of the walls. I mean, to me, honestly, I see a bigger difference in moving from 25 yards to a 50-meter pool than I see in a 25 yards to open water. Like when I do my first 50-meter outdoor pools in the year, it feels like the pool is 9 miles long. After 24 yards, I'm like, dude, my arms are about to fall off. Open water, kind of getting a groove. That's a huge. And then obviously running, another totally different thing, right? Same people pick the same routes because they want to measure. Again, I say variety week all the time. I'm when I say that, I'm more talking about intervals and repetition. But again, especially this early time of year where a lot of people still haven't raced. I mean, you got, again, 33,000 people lining up at 7.3 Chad. I would probably say, And 80% of them haven't done a triathlon this year. And you're going from, again, downriver stream, maybe not as applicable, but who knows what's what. Again, and also swimming, like swimming in a pool with your Speedo on or your swimsuit and, all your toys, and you hop in and you got a wetsuit, right? Sometimes wetsuits make you feel worse. Sometimes they make you feel better, right? Aero helmet, it's like, it's so different, which I think is why, when I look back to the best fitness I've ever been in, it was when I was living in Nashville. And yeah, the trace, right? So rolling terrain, difficult terrain. You had the lab, super windy, pancake flat. So it checked all the boxes, right? We had Anderson Road Beach, open water, check. Had pools going around, check. You had Percy Warner and trails, hilly asphalt, hilly dirt, check. You had the lab, you had greenways, asphalt, check. It checks all the boxes. Besides there being like 17 billion people there now, it checks all those boxes. And I think going into every race, I had so much confidence because I wasn't going to see anything new. Like I know we've told this story before, but I remember that year you and I did Muncie, and we got done with the race, and people were like, "It was so windy today. Like, did you feel that headwind?" And I think you and I were standing, and we were like, "I didn't even know there was a wind."
No.
That day. You remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It was because you and I had spent, I don't know, we met up at least once or twice, or tried to, like, every week at the lab. And it was super windy, right? Same thing with hills and cornering and turning it. Like, you have to, if you only sharpen one of your knives, right? You don't, and you let the rest of them get dull, you're going to need them at some point. And on race day, you might pull it out and you realize it's dull and you won't be able to use it. And I just think, like, when it comes to mixing things up, I know it's hard for people because it might be uncomfortable and you might be attached to a certain pace. But you have to do that to be prepared to race, because you see this a ton, and this is a hard conversation with athletes. It's like, you can't take your indoor controlled environment training and copy and paste it to your race and expect the exact same outcome.
Yeah. Speaking of that, my buddy that was up here, we did the riding, but he's been swimming in the pool a lot, 1,500, 2,000, all that kind of shit. And I took him in the lake for the first time ever. And that dude, I thought he was going to die like after like 30 yards, man. It just became, he was admitting it. He goes, man, I am just completely frazzled right now. His breathing was off and the whole 9 yards. And he was dizzy. And that kind of came because I get like that when I get in open water too, the first time. I think it's something to do with you have no depth perception, or you don't know, you in a pool, you're seeing shit and, you can see the bottom and whatever, but like, he would start swimming, and then I was in my kayak and I was just with him, and I was just letting him go, but he started swimming straight sideways. Like, he was going towards our house, and then he went straight sideways, and he's going, where the fuck am I? Like, completely losing it. So yeah, the environment outside in the open water and versus the pool, but you get used to it, right? And then whenever I get in open water, I just kind of think of it as water now. I just try to relax into it like it's no different. And that's just how I approach things. But yeah, so cycling outside, and, I feel like I've just always sort of felt comfortable on hills, and when we go to the trace, and I kind of always like grinding up hills. Maybe that's the mountain biking stuff, but I've never been as comfortable in aero and, the sort of those constant output type things. Some people are really good. That's why I'm so afraid of, I don't say afraid, but like a race like Florida or something, or maybe even Texas, like the aero experiences. I like getting up and down. I'm not real good at just sort of locking into a pace. I have kind of more a natural tendency to like kind of changes in effort and things like that, and hills and up and down and that sort of thing. But so up here, it's real, you speak of wind, man. It's like these lakes up here. I mean, it's just gusting all the time. And the first couple times it was just pissing me off. But now once you kind of get used to it, like you're saying at Muncie, we rode the lab all the time. That wind is absolutely brutal. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And now I'm just embracing it. And the more you get used to that wind, man, that is huge. So like, that's the thing I'm thinking about more than anything, is going into the wind and just kind of locking into that relaxed groove and stuff like that. I think of it as a hill too. You know, it's the same type of concept for me, to be able to relax. I mean, I'm out there the other day, and I mean, just to give you an idea of how I'm just excited about it. I bought those power pedals. I kind of slipped that in.
Yeah, you did. You slipped it. I didn't address it. I was kind of let it fly under the radar.
I was just, I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna try it, and I'm out riding around. And I kind of like it because, I just glance at it every now and just I'm getting an idea. I've always liked it in the sense that it kind of connects my effort to like what reality is. And I can kind of start gauging that and even get a better sense of RPE from it. And I'm out there like the other day. I mean, I don't know when the last time you did an FTP test, but it was like right in the middle of my ride. I'm like, I'm going to bust it for like 20 minutes because I got a nice 1.5 mile loop that's no cars and shit like that. So it was just fun it's just been fun to kind of, get after things, but also like yesterday, I just went out for a 45-minute chill. And I got an athlete. He goes, dude, I got the secret to cycling. I said, oh yeah. Yesterday, Tom. No, he didn't say that, but he said, I've been commuting to work 3 or 4 days a week. It's like 7 miles each way, but he says I'm wearing like, all my computer, and I have about 20 pounds in a backpack. He goes, I think that has really put me over the hump for, kind of taking me to a new level in cycling. And it's just, it's not his workouts, but he's just kind of doing it. And I thought that was really interesting because that's sort of exactly how I'm feeling about it. I might just jump on there and ride, 40 minutes or something just to be on the bike. And it was sort of like we were talking about that comfort in the water or feel for the water. And that's what I'm getting is that feel for the bike. And the more you do it, the more comfortable it feels in general. And that's just going to let you perform better.
I love what you said there about just the spontaneity of it all. Mm-hmm. And I think that again, like that goes back to the rigidity that I think we find ourselves in because of how we've structured ourselves, right? Like, and I get it. Like, we're all busier. So now we look for ways to, not cut corners, but definitely not be as adventurous, right? As what we do. And I was having a call with an athlete, yesterday. What was it? God, today's Tuesday. Yeah, yesterday. And they're asking about, workouts. I was like, listen, like, you have to go with what feels right. And a lot of times we get so comfortable in our routine that we don't even know what adventure or being uncomfortable is like and how to even respond to it. Right? Like, I'll never forget I think whatever the last year, I think it was at Louisville. Ironman Louisville was in August, or maybe it was October, whatever year it was. And the day started out perfect. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it was like dropped like 30 degrees. It was windy. It was hailing. It was just like a total shit show. Like it started with it, and then people were like freezing at the end. Like the less, again, spontaneous and reactive you are in training, the less you will be on race day. And figuring things out, experimenting with things. I think we spend too much time, right? And I love what you said about when you talk about cold plunging, some people think it's too hard on your body and this and this and this. Like, I think we spend way too much time probably researching things, trying to figure out an answer than to figure things out through our own experiences and what feels right. And not just long-term, but also in the moment. Because a cold plunge one day, in my opinion, could probably be incredible for your body. But then if you're, and on a totally another day, it might be not the smartest thing to do, depending on what's going on. But if you become too much of a creature of habit, I think in anything, then you lose the objectivity to make the precise, objective, best decision in that moment. And I think, again, when we get too repetitive, right? And again, I know I say varieties for the week, and that's more so about always having a different workout to keep yourself, engaged. And when it comes to training, and I think I love what you said about, the last time we did an FTP test, I did one, I think the week of the Tuesday or Wednesday I was back from Texas. And I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about fueling, all this kind of stuff. And he was like, basically, he was like, just challenge yourself. He is talking about, a lot of times we over fuel before we do sessions, and then so much blood is going to digesting all this excess sugar and carbs that we don't end up performing as well. And I mean, sugar and carbs are necessary, but they're probably not to the extent that we probably think in all aspects. Yes, at some point, not at all. And he was like, yeah, I just challenge you to go out next time you do like an FTP test, like just do it on water and see what happens. And I was like, and my first thought is, that's stupid, right? An hour long, right? You want to perform well. You want to knock it out of the park. You need sugar. You need carbs. But I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Just had this experience in Texas. Like, you know what? Let me hop on and see what happens. So I get there. I'm talking like, dude, first 10 minutes I'm on there warming up. My brain's craving?
Sugar.
And every ounce of my being was like, I was starting to get like hot, not chills, but I was starting to get hot. And I was starting to get like, again, not the chills, but kind of like that feeling, like that sugar kind of crash feeling. And I was like, dude, I totally need a goo. But I was like, no, you know what? You don't. Just keep going. You've eaten enough yesterday. You had plenty this morning. It's afternoon. You don't need anything. Went out, did the entire session, just plain water.
Wow.
Highest FTP in like 17 months. Damn. Now, that's not because I didn't take any carbohydrates. But the point was to show yourself, to me, right, that, you know what, maybe I don't need as much as I probably think I need. Maybe it's some of these signals that I've been feeling in the lead up when I was training for Texas that I felt sluggish the more that because everybody talked about training your gut. And I was like, I feel like a lot of effort's going into kind of like trying to process all this stuff that I'm kind of putting in my body. And so again, you can't take a one-off as a fact, but I've been experimenting with it since. And again, like I think we spend so much time, again, I'm talking about how easy things have become, right? That people pop into Facebook groups. Hey, has anyone tried this? And you take this advice from a random stranger on the internet. Even us, right? We're just two average dudes, right? Talking about experiences. And we're the first one to tell you not to copy and paste exactly what we do. We probably give out some pretty solid to pretty good advice in a lot of things. But we also tell you that it's also your journey and your experience. So when you become too much of a creature of habit and you over research and under experience, then I don't think you're ever going to really figure out what is right for you. Because I think everybody has this, much like a cadence. I think everybody has like their naturally most powerful cadence that they just kind of fall into. I also think that there are these things in life that just feel right to you as a person, right? As a human being, that just feels right to me. It just makes sense to me, right? And that usually, I think, is your body and your mind's way of being like, this is your best opportunity to be your best and create great longevity in life and the sport. That wasn't the most perfect thing. I don't know, maybe not. But if it's the one you can do the most frequently, then it probably is. Instead of yo-yoing all over the place, where you've got, we all know people who have gone through 96 different diets in the last 3 years, and have tried, 17 different sports in the last year and a half. It's always the sport. It's always that. It's never them, right? And they're trying too hard. They do too much research. A lot of times you just figure things out on their own. Same thing with cycling and swimming and running and triathlon. You can read so much. You can listen to so many podcasts with so many different coaches and so many professional athletes and hear so much information. Take it all and filter it. Your mind, it should be a net, right? And you take everything out and you filter out what you think sticks, because everyone's net's different. You got holes bigger and smaller in different places, bigger size net, smaller size net. Some are more fine than others. Take it out, filter it, and use what it is that you think is going to make you the most successful, because you're also going to be more bought into it. So when you take that and you have the ability and the flexibility, right, to go out on a ride and say, you know what, I'm going to hammer it out for 20 minutes. More power to you, right? Because the unpredictable, it's like the comparison they always make between when you look at pro racing versus age group racing, is it's totally different. You can't go time to time because age group racing is so much, you're racing against yourself. You don't have to battle the surges and the packs and the things you're trying to do in pro racing. Like they have to be much more responsive to that. And I think as age group athletes, we'd be better served training a lot and having more of a mentality like a pro athlete to be more responsive, to be more reactive, to be able to change on a dime, right? If the swim is canceled, to get your run face ready to be at a duathlon. If you get your mind right that it's going to be a hard swim. I know Gulf Coast this last weekend, kudos to them for even having it. It was non-wetsuit legal. And when I checked the weather, look what the weather was in Panama City, there was a rip current advisory. And our athletes were already out of the water. And I was like, kudos for them. But I'm sure a lot of people didn't do it because they weren't prepared. They could probably made it physically, but they probably weren't prepared mentally. And so again, like I know you and I, drill this and talk about this a ton, but I just think that the simplicity and the ease of which we have access to do things so easily now, it prevents us from challenging ourselves, because on race day, it's the farthest thing from controlled. And you not only do you have the environments and the terrain and the conditions, the wind, the humidity, all these things, equipment you don't normally use on a day-to-day basis, right? You also have 2,500 other people who are now thrown into this like random environment that they probably haven't prepared for. And to me, that is the number one reason why you've seen such. When I used to race back in the day, like all the time, I never saw bike wrecks. Ever. You never saw bike wrecks during a race. Ever. They never happened. You never heard about accidents. And now it's every race, multiple times. And it's because we're all stuck inside, not getting out into our environment. So we take one person who's in a weird environment that's unstable and isn't familiar with it, and you multiply it by 2,500. Well, that math also gets you the increase in accidents, right, that we keep seeing. So again, there's so many things, again, not just from the safety piece and the preparation piece, but there's there's the inability to, I think, have more fun and listen to your body in training. If you got it, rip it. If you don't, then you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. First on that, the diet thing, I've often had this wonder, I guess, about, I think most people, well, I don't know, I shouldn't say most people, but a lot of people probably eat. I just think we eat too much sometimes, or more than we need. We're doing an aerobics. I mean, if you're bodybuilding, I don't know about you, but my body hasn't like really changed in like 30, 40 years. I mean, it's not like I'm growing and my bones need fuel and things like that. But I know that we do some intensity, but the aerobic, we're not like bodybuilders and trying to add tons and tons of muscle and shit like that. So I wonder about that. I'm just curious. Because, I was just thinking about it because you're FTP, and I a lot of times I'm riding out there with just water and stuff like that, or I'll take the Saturday app kind of guideline thing, but I'll just mix a real light little something in there to kind of sustain me depending on the workout or whatever. But and the other thing is I like to, you mentioned that about the bike wrecks, and I'd like to draw a parallel to. And I know you kind of mentioned that you didn't think this, well, I shouldn't say that, but I like to run on the sand here since I've been here. And I just bought these shoes that are just kind of like not beach shoes, but like a pool running type shoe or something like that. Mm-hmm. Real minimal. It's almost like barefoot, but it's just got rubber on the bottom. And I've noticed, sand is not easy to run on. I've been doing sort of walk runs out there a lot, but over time, like my buddy ran out there and he said that incline, the beach incline is kind of messing with me and stuff. And I get that, but like what I've learned to do is just sort of roll with things a little bit more. It's kind of like when you trail run, right? First time you get on a trail run, everybody's real dainty if they haven't been out there, because there's always little things, a root or a rock or whatever the case may be. And anytime, if you're just used to running on a road or a path, that kind of stuff irritates you. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this feels weird. Ah, that hurts. Oh, I'm injured. You know, like, so I've really been trying to like lean into this idea of, I don't want to say barefoot running, but just sort of rolling with, you know, letting your body feel things. Like if my leg slips or whatever, I don't panic. I just kind of slip a little bit, and then I pick up the momentum again and just find a groove and try to run light on top of the sand, things like that. And I just think with cycling and, you know, too much trainer riding and, you know, those types of things are huge, man. Like, cause you know, you hit a bump or whatever, and then you're not used to bumps, you know, or tough roads. It just really gets in your head. So this racing in environments that you train in, there's nothing like that, man. I mean, it's just probably the most underrated part of everything. If you're used to like just perfect conditions all the time and you get dealt a bad hand on that race day, you're going to be really in your head about that. So I just like doing things that are a little bit harder. You know, you always talk about, you know, pro triathletes, any athletes always saying how you should practice harder than you race or in the game, you know, so the game seems easy. And I think that is just like a can of worms you could open up, and it's endless. You know, it's just, there's something to be said about being able to go into a condition and not have it like really just get your brain all worked up. You just kind of go through it. I mean, you know, unless it's a tornado or something like that, you know, you just kind of got to relax and just kind of run through the wind. Or if you kind of turn your ankle a little bit, just kind of like, you know, let it go a little. I don't know. I've just, ever since I started this sport, when I started running, dude, I hurt every day. And now I get these same little kind of tweaks when I'm just starting my run, and I just ignore them, you know? So it's just a lot of it's experience. And I think you got to put yourself in those situations more often.
And a lot of it is we're just getting old. Because
I'm not buying that shit either. Dude.
I have at least.
I might be getting faster than I've ever been.
Yeah, one run every 2 weeks, I start off and I feel like I have a stress fracture in my foot.
Yeah.
It's been like that for I don't know how many years. Last 7, 8, 9 years. And again, it's not to say. I think we've become so obsessed with avoiding things that we might deem as critical that we've distanced ourselves way too much from opportunities to figure things out and to just really decide like if it is in fact critical or it's not. I mean, I've had, and I think it's one of the hardest things to do as a coach. Like, and I had this conversation with an athlete last week, and I can think of 2 athletes specifically in the last year or two that, you know, PT's like, don't run. I'm like, do we have a fucking plan? Like, do we have a plan? Because to me, you're either hurt or you're getting better. And a lot of times athletes do things or don't do things to stay hurt. And if we don't have a plan, right? If we're not actively trying to get better, then that's a choice, right? You're not trying enough things and for a lot of it, especially for people who've had long time chronic, you know, niggles here and there, oftentimes, and I can't tell you how many times I tell people to stop stretching before things. I'm like, stop stretching. You're making it worse. Or stop doing this. You're making it worse. And to these 2 that specifically, I was like, you know what? Let's we're running this week, baby. We're not doing what the PT says. I know they said, but you know what? We're running. We're back. Because at some point, we got to figure out exactly what it is. We're either going to hurt ourselves worse and then figure out what the actual problem is, or we're going to stay hurt and pretend like we can't run for the next 6 months with no actual information on how to get better. And they ran in, again, you say ran through it, but they ran through it and they're like, and now they're fine. And that's not true for everyone. But again, like, I think we take that mentality of, you know, distancing ourselves from something because we're too afraid of the actual outcome that we actually never fix or address the problem that we think we have or resolve it to make sure it never happens again. Right. And I think again, whether it's chronic injuries or niggles, I'm like, a lot of times, like, hey, again, if you don't have a plan, you're not getting better. You're not recovering from injury. You're staying hurt. Have a plan. And if there is no plan, I said, does your PT even have a plan? Because I'm pretty sure you're just getting milked for the copay. Like, let's have a plan. Let's get back to work. And a lot of times, and again, I'm no physiotherapist, I'm no PT therapist. But you know what? Unless you've broken a bone, rarely ever is the best thing for you to be totally 100% sedentary and do nothing. Oftentimes, I think that makes it worse. And that's my experience from coaching for close to 10 years and hundreds of athletes. That totally being stale makes it worse. Over, buying shoes that are cushioned up like my Mimi used to wear is why people get hurt. Right? Wearing braces 24/7 is why you're not getting stronger and able to withstand more of a pounding. Take the braces off. Get to running on more, and stop running on just a treadmill or stop running straight forward. Do some things that are side to side. Like, I think we get afraid of something and we end up becoming what we're afraid of because we avoid the things that will actually make us resilient to what we're actually avoiding. Same thing goes. I'm not very good at hills, so I just do things on flat. Well, of course you suck on hills. You never ride hills. You're a self-fulfilling prophecy. And when you again, going back to training and stuff like that's exactly what you get on race day. Like, if you don't know how to adapt, you don't know how to change things, and you get that exact thing on race day. I mean, I talked about it a little bit before the podcast, today about, you asked me how I was doing with, sports therapy and figuring things out. And I was like, I just got I can't expect to be in a competitive mindset if I'm no longer acting like I'm competitive. Like, we get so out of practice, I think, a lot quicker, very similar to like feel for the water. You lose it quick. And it becomes very safe and comfortable to not do that, right? It's just easier. And then we remember the things we signed up for, right? Marathons, 50 milers, 70.3s, Olympics, sprints, half marathons, full Ironmans. Like, none of that is easy. And none of that is predictable. And yet, oftentimes our choice is taking the easy way out, or the way that's, mindless. And I'm like, race day is the opposite of mindless. I mean, if anything, you're stuck in your head for the first time in I don't know how long. No earphones, no screen to watch, 30,000 people, the roads. It's you in your head making all those little micro decisions every 35 seconds. Versus putting your trainer in ERG mode and turning on your favorite, Netflix series and legit not even thinking about what you're doing. You're just working out your legs. And then you get outside and you have to shift and move and grab your water bottle from an aid station or from the bottle behind you. And you're wearing a different helmet. Your head's in a different position. You got people and you got watts to follow. And you have a game plan. I mean, could it be any different? I mean, it really is. Like, it is polar opposite from that. And again, like, we have to do a better job as athletes. I think we have to do a better job of coaches of pushing and encouraging our athletes to, again, not do stupid things, but to be adventurous and to own things and to be experimental. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But, the worst thing, at least you're going to figure it out on the way and experiment with it on the way. I love athletes like to experiment. It shows you're invested and it shows you're curious, right? Being curious is a really, really good thing. And I think we've failed in that area in a lot of ways.
Yeah. My overarching goal is to feel younger as I get older. And that does not happen without being invested and curious. And, I've done 10 straight Ironman and finished in my 50s, and now I'm 60. So, like, it's funny you brought up that thing about running with the shoes, because I got, a while back, it was like 4 years ago or something in Chattanooga, when I got plantar fasciitis. It was just debilitating. And then I ended up, quote unquote, curing it by getting some Hokas and trail shoes, and I started running trail shoes. It was that pain in the bottom of your heel that just would not go away. So I started, and that was like, it took the pain out, and I just kind of ran through it because of the cush. But then I stuck with them. And recently, as I was just talking about, the sand running, I think has propelled. And the other day I picked up my old Newtons, and I've been running in those since. And I was like, you know what? You know what that did to me? It made me felt like I was running again. I feel like over the last 3 or 4 years, I've just been, cushy shoe, fucking plodding along, and it just hasn't felt. I haven't felt the pavement. It's sort of, I don't get that. I think it takes more energy because you got that. Your transfer is not there. So I don't know. The last few times I've run, I've been in these Newtons again, and I know Newtons aren't for everybody, but I've always liked them for some reason. But anyway, it's just the point of it's not like super cushy, and I can feel my run again.
I didn't even know they still made Newtons.
I know. Well, they were my old ones. They're like 3 years old or something.
Where did you find these?
Well, I just looked. They're still out there.
The yellow or red?
They're blue with a cool ass yellow to them.
Yellow, yeah. But
they're blue mainly. Blue, black, and yellow, I think. But it doesn't matter because they do look good though. But yeah. So I saw a comment in one of our Facebook posts the other day that I have to address. Is like, somebody said, I just show up like Mike and have a good time at the race. No. I like to go out. Like, I'm super intense. I like to be chill about everything. I like to have fun with it or whatever, but I don't go to these. I like to race, so I just wanted to get that out there. And I have that, I've got a bit of a killer instinct when I'm out doing my shit. It's just kind of, I saw that in passing. I just don't want that to be the impression that people have of me, is like, I just like to have a little fun and go do a race if I, do this or whatever. No, that's like, I'm after it as best as I can, depending on my fitness.
Well, you got to be able to turn it on and off.
Well,
I think you're good at that.
But I'm good. I'm good at grinding is what I'm good at.
This is very true.
Anyway,
no, I think that
so the Newtons are back.
Newtons back. I remember.
I tried to find some fucking shoes. Oh, there it is. There's the explicit.
There now.
I was looking at all these shoes, dude. Everybody makes Hokas now.
Dude, I know.
In the store, I could not find a regular running shoe at this, big super shoe store thing I was at. I was like, what the fuck? What is this?
Were you at a Payless?
No, it was like one of those Rogan shoe stores. You ever heard of those?
Never.
They're big, man.
Rogan?
Rogan. It's spelled like Rogan, Joe Rogan, but I think they say Rogan. I don't know. But they got all the, buy one, get one half, that type of deal. But they had a gazillion brands, and I got tired of looking, but they all look like Hokas now. Everything. The kids wear them.
And this is going to date me if all things are going to date me. And I would probably bet less than 5% of our listeners even remember this. So way back in the day, I used to wear K-Swiss.
Oh, yeah.
Run shoes. I wore that before I started wearing the Newtons, because they were actually one of the first big like Ironman sponsors besides Timex was K-Swiss, and they made all these like tri-specific shoes. The California, one of the best shoes ever made. Easily one of the best shoes ever made. And they also made this like tripped out race shoe that was just mesh with a Velcro strap over the top. Sweet. I mean, you just slipped it on, dude. Just slipped it on. It had less to it than like recovery shoes now. But anyway, back in the day, when you'd walk into a Fleet Feet, I bet you they handed 80% of people a Brooks Beast shoe. A Brooks Beast shoe, you probably don't even know that you're walking on ground. It's got so much stability, so much foam, so much everything. And you wonder why people get injured. You can't feel anything. You probably can't even feel what you're running until it gets up to like your hips. You don't feel anything in your ankles and your proprioception. You get nothing. Everybody walking the door, you get a Brooks Beast or you get a Brooks Adrenaline, which isn't that far off. Instead of like, which is why like you saw this huge swing in the Vibrams that came super popular.
Yeah.
Like, oh, now we got to start running barefoot. He went through that whole craze. We stocked Beaver's at the triathlon store I worked at, and this is like 20 years ago. But yeah, it was like that's why the pendulum swung totally in the other direction. And then I found the Newton gravities, and that was like the best shoe ever, because it forced you to feel what you're supposed to feel, and then hopefully caused you to react and change your foot placement, right, or your stride length, or just be, I don't know, pay attention. Now I feel like with how cushy they make some of these shoes, you don't have to feel anything. You could probably have a compound stress fracture, not know it till you get home.
Jesus,
That's
man.
how much cushion they put in some of these, especially like the Hokas. It's insane. But yeah, no, I get it, dude. But again, it goes right back to what we're talking about, right? About just so comfortable, and avoidance is usually it's just last analogy before we wrap it up. It's like an athlete I work with used to always come to run camp, and 2 years straight would only run on the gravel and only hike on the technical trails. She's like, my ankles are weak. I can't do trails. Like, your ankles are weak because you don't do trails. Like, you're not going to turn your ankle. Go out there and strengthen up your ankles. No, they're too weak. I'm like, fine, whatever. So coaches athlete. 2 years ago, gets into trail running. Trail runs more. Wins trail races. Ankle injuries, 0. Trail running wins, 3. You're like, exactly. That is the point that we're trying to make. Like, when you avoid something, you just give, again, like more confidence and opportunity to not be what it is you says you are not, or have what you want to have, or have the fitness or the experience or the reactive nature or whatever it is, the flexibility, whatever it is. Like, you just have, and especially as for like coaches, there's not a coach on the planet, even with all the billions of tools you're going to have today to measure all kinds of readiness. No one, not even you, can predict how you're going to feel the next day. Ever. You can guess. You can guesstimate. You can theorize. You can plan. You can predict, whatever it is. But only you know. So you have to be able to make decisions in that moment and own it. Because that's exactly what race day is. It's all these little micro decisions each second. Not, hey, I've got, heading out on my bike ride for my Ironman. I plugged it in my pre-built workout for a 6-hour zone 2 ride. And I'm just going to zone out with my AirPods and some tune. I'm like, no, shit doesn't work like that. Right. But it is like athletes get so irritated now when a bike workout isn't pre-built.
I know.
It's like the end of the world, right? I don't know what to shift. I don't know what to gear. I don't know what's cadence. I'm like, I know Garmin devices are second to none. But you were born with the supercomputer in your head. We got to do a better job of using that in troubleshooting. Again, I'll shut up, but it reminds me of my best friend in high school. Most athletic, most brilliant guy I've ever met in my entire life. Perfect score in his SAT. Perfect. I mean, didn't have to just.
We didn't go to high school together, dude.
We didn't. No, wasn't you? No, wasn't you?
Oh.
And
I didn't even take the SAT.
We would walk every door we walked into that had a giant push on it. He'd sit and pull for like 2 fucking minutes. I'm like, dude, where's your hello, critical thinking here? You're brilliant. I think he has like 3 doctorates now. A couple from Vanderbilt, but he's the guy that's going to stand there pulling on the door that says push for 20 minutes before it figures it out. Critical thinking, not there. We got to do better at that. Critical thinking in racing, critical thinking in training, critical thinking in preparation. It's way more fun, and you learn so much more.
Well, all right, let's wrap it up. Before we do, I want to give a quick shout out to my first running shoe, which was Pearl Izumi.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
Fuck, I
Were
love
they
those
turquoise
things.
or black?
Black. I had a black pair and an orange pair, or black and a yellow, and then I think orange or something. But that makes me want to go look for those too.
I was gonna say, I bet you still have them.
I might. I got, yeah, because they were black and
with those were like the feature.
God, those things were, boy, you talk about, they were pretty minimal.
You think? I think there was nothing to those things.
But boy, they were light, man. I don't think I've ever ran as well as I have in those. So, of course, I was younger, but I might look those up real quick. Anyway, all right, buddy. I'll catch you later.
Yeah, that's all we got, guys. Love you. We'll see you on Thursday.
All right, see you, man.